Everybody, and welcome to another Facebook Live conversation. That kind of feels like it's a conversation with myself, but that's okay today because today I want to talk about that. I want to talk about what it means to care for yourself. This is Valentine's Day, the day when we normally think about relationships and what a friend just said, accompanied relationships. I love that she said you're either single or or what did she say? You're in a relationship or you're unaccompanied. I really like that way of thinking of it. And so today, sorry, I have a frog. I want to talk about love and what it means to be confident enough to spend some time on yourself. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. And as always, it will go as a podcast later today. So thanks for participating. Anybody who watches live or later, feel free to put comments in. I will watch the comments as much as I can. If you want to add anything to the conversation, please do that in the comments right here. So I'm looking at my hair. My hair got kind of poofy today, but that's okay. I haven't talked yet this morning, so you're my audience for allowing me to talk about some things. Thank you for that. So I'm just going to go live for my podcast, and we'll just take it from there. So please, again, if you're watching live or later, put comments in. I'm happy to address them if you add them there. Okay? So 1 second, I'm going to mute myself if I can for just a second. Maybe I can't. You're going to be live with me as I clear my throat. Thank you. So I'm going to do the countdown, and then we'll have it ready for the podcast, okay? 3, 2, 1. Hi, everybody, and welcome to episode 203 of Circle Up and Get Real, where we talk about things that matter with people who matter. And today, it's Valentine's Day when I'm recording this, and you might think that the people who matter most in our lives are the people we love, our significant others, our kids, our family, our friends. And that's completely 100% true. Yet I think sometimes we overlook the one person who will never leave us and the one person we will never lose, and that's ourselves. And so I am aware of a term that I probably have known for a long time, but in my Wednesday afternoon group, one of our members put herself in a year of self-love. And so she was all about herself this year, and she's taking care of herself, and she's turning the flashlight or the spotlight inward. And I love that concept, especially today on Valentine's Day when it's usually about external, showing people that you love them, which is very important. I want to talk a little bit about going inside today. So what does it mean to start with self? It's that old, I wish I could think of a new analogy, but it's that old analogy of put your oxygen mask on first before you help somebody else, which makes complete sense. I just wish there were another way to say that so that that is kind of overused. But if I don't care for myself first, it's pretty hard to be real about caring for someone else. And I'm learning this personally in my own life over the course of the years of my life, in relationships with people where I thought I had to be what they wanted me to be. And even worse, it was what I thought they wanted me to be, when probably wasn't even true. And I tried so hard to fit into other people's boxes and other people's, views of what a relationship should be, whether that's a business relationship, a romantic relationship, a personal relationship, a friendship, whatever. There was a lot of time in my life when I did that. And it may be hard to understand now for people who know me now and have known me in my role, but I have had really, really low self-confidence most of my life. It's funny, I just met somebody the other day who I'd known, or I'd met before a long time ago, and I reintroduced myself, and that person said, well, I know you. I mean, we've met, we know each other. And it took me back to days when I was younger and I'd be in an event with someone, or I'd be at a public event, and I would always feel like I needed to reintroduce myself because I didn't feel that I was very memorable. So I was always surprised when people would say things like, oh, I know you. Yeah, we've met. And at the time, it just didn't occur to me that people would remember me. And I think about that from this vantage point because I have a lot more confidence now than I ever have, ever. I've been doing a lot of work on myself. I can show up with a lot more confidence. I spent most of my upbringing and my early career, actually a lot of my career, playing small. And when I read the book A New Earth several years ago, I realized that there is something called small ego. I've been well aware of big ego my whole life, and I've tried everything I can not to be in big ego, which is it's all about me, 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 me. I'm better than is how a big ego would project. I went the other way. I went to small ego, which was no, 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 not about me. I'm not worthy. It was hiding from the light that was mine to step into, because I was so afraid that somebody would think I was cocky. And I was a basketball player. I'm an All-American basketball player in college, and it was interesting when I look back on how important that was to me just because I wanted to be seen, I think. I wanted to be appreciated. And on a basketball court, that was easy to do. You just score points. You just do your job well. And when people are watching, they can give you external validation. And I remember that being really important to me for a long time in my life because it was the way that I filled up my own bucket. But over time, in a career of my own choosing, where I have to sell my services and I have to prove to a potential client that it is a good investment to have me coach, speak, train, whatever I was doing throughout my career. It's really interesting looking back that I would choose that career when I didn't have a whole lot of self-confidence. I mean, I knew what I knew. I was very smart. I've always been able to retain information. And so I'm very smart in my head. And I can tell you things. I can teach you things. I can train you on things. But I haven't always done the things that I'm telling you to do for myself. Because maybe it's because I was raised in a family that said, it's not about you, Jodee. It's about everyone else. You are here to serve. And so for a long time in my life, I didn't know what to do with that. When I felt like, yes, I have a lot to give, but if I let that light shine, it'll occur as arrogance. So there was this weird juxtaposition of emotions and feelings through most of my life, which ended up being detrimental to my soul, myself. I just didn't value myself. I thought that because who I knew myself to be was not what other people seemed to want, that I must be wrong. And I tell you all that because I think a lot of people probably suffer from that. We call it imposter syndrome these days. And it's trying to be something you're not, is the way I look at that term now. Trying to be something you're not. And it might be because what you know yourself to be is not valued or wanted. It might be because you've done a whole lot of work on yourself. And when you start to understand things differently and you want to project that to other people and they're not ready for it, it occurs as arrogance. Or it could be because you just haven't had practice and you don't even know that there's another way to be. It doesn't really matter how you get to that place of low self-esteem or low self-confidence. It's important that you recognize it. And when we can recognize that for ourselves, by the way, I just have to talk about me because I don't know what everybody else is going through. But when I recognized that for myself and turned the light inside, that's where I started to get more authentic, more aligned, where what I was saying, what I was feeling, what I was projecting, what I was doing, what I was experiencing and learning from the relationships in my life was authentic. It was so distinct from the way I had been feeling. And part of that was because I recognized I'm not the only one. It's not only me. I remember a couple of milestones in that way. I did the DISC profile back in, 2011 maybe, when I was employed at Keller Williams. And I took the assessment as honestly as I could, and I recognized in my profile that it was like other people's profiles. I mean, the profile I had fit my role there quite well. And it occurred to me that being me is okay because there are other people like me. And that was one of the first times I really felt validated for who I really was. There are things that happened throughout the course of that kind of peeling back of the onion layers that had me perhaps come across too bright. I had somebody tell me, Jodee, your light is so bright it hurts my eyes. And then I had to think about that and go, okay, sorry. I apologize. I did a lot of apologizing as I was peeling back those onion layers and recognizing that, oh, this feels so much better. Yet what I was learning was hurting other people's eyes. So then, of course, you have to go, is this really the best thing? It was a journey, man. It was a journey. It was such a journey. It still is a journey. But the good news today is that I really can value myself. I can look inside and say, I like who I am. And can I say it on Valentine's Day? I love who I am. And as I step into that space of self-love first, it becomes so much easier to allow whatever is to be around me. I'm observing so many sided conversations, so many distinct positions. People are taking positions, taking sides against things. And most of the time it's sides against things. And as I observe that, I go, okay, what is this for me? What can I learn from this? How does this feel? Is this something that I choose on purpose? And all of that was available to me before I knew this. But because I didn't know it, I couldn't access it. So some of the awareness that I'm having and the way that I'm able to apply it has made such a difference in my own self-confidence, my self-image, my self-esteem, all of those things that only belong to me. I have a client right now that I'm in love with this client, and I love working with this organization so much because they've trusted me to be me, basically. And what we talk about each week is distinctions. We're setting a foundation for their culture, and we're talking about distinctions. And through the course of the last 6 weeks, we just started this project in January, we've talked about the distinctions between being nice and being kind. That was one whole conversation. We talked about the distinction between perception, perspective, and reality. That was week 2. Week 3, we talked about the distinction between a good fit, if you're a good fit for an organization, or whether you're trying to fit in. And we kind of broke these ideas apart and had a really great dialogue about them. Week 4, we talked about the distinction between knowledge and skill. Knowledge is what you can learn by reading, and skill is what you learn by doing it over and over again. I'm noticing that my friend Rhoda has just jumped in here, and Rhoda's a great example of knowledge and skill. She's a fantastic musician, and I've known her since college, since freshman year of college, and she had her guitar with her everywhere. And I'm betting, Rhoda, that you did not learn how to play your guitar by reading about it from a guitar book and then just picked up the guitar or the banjo or the ukulele or whatever it is you're playing in the moment. So all of that is a skill that we can get better at if we practice it. We talked about that week 4. And then week 5, we talked about what does it mean to create belonging? What does it mean to, let's see, what did we say? The distinction between inclusion and integration. We talked about belonging in an organizational culture. And then this week we talked about cynicism and skepticism and what they both are and where they might be desired and not desired. So I bring that up because there's a lot of distinctions in language that maybe we don't know, and so we use terms interchangeably that have different meanings. And I think right now in this conversation about the distinction that I'm using, this is just me, it's not that you have to take this on, but between inspiration and motivation. And when I played basketball, I had a lot of motivation, which was external, a push. It was, in some cases, back in the day when I was, in my own head about my own self-confidence, the motivation would be helpful. How many points can I score? Can I get my name in the paper? Will people value and acknowledge me if I play well? That was motivation external, based on fear of what would happen if I didn't. And it was effective at times. I mean, you can, in a basketball game, you can see the score on the scoreboard and you know if you won or lost. So it's pretty easy to tell if what you're doing is producing the result you want. But inspiration, on the other hand, is what I've learned since then. Inspiration to me is on the inside, and it doesn't need an external motivator necessarily. It is a pull. It's like, I can't not do this. When I'm inspired by something, Patanjali has a great quote that I won't remember right here, but I'll put it in the show notes. When you are inspired by a great thought, all your defenses come down and dormant forces come alive in you when you're inspired by a great thought or a great purpose, I guess. And in that space of inspiration, for me, that is where the light comes from. That's where the light comes through me. That's where I feel most alive, when I feel inspired by something. And yes, that may hurt other people's eyes. I get that now. And what I'm thinking in my mind, instead of having me tone down the light, I think in my mind, maybe you need some sunglasses. If you want to be in this conversation, I mean, I can be aware. I guess I'm speaking when I'm doing like a keynote speech. If my light hurts people's eyes in the audience, I don't have an opportunity to individually tone it down, tone it up. So that's where this sunglasses analogy comes. If you want to be in the conversation and in an audience like that, put on some sunglasses. If it's individual and you're feeling overwhelmed by me, by my energy, tell me. I'm very flexible. And I would love to stay in the conversation, stay in the game of it, if you want to look at it that way. It's an infinite game to make a connection and have a deep and true conversation, what I call a dialogue, suspending previous assumptions in order to learn something in that interaction. For me, that's one of my values, and that's probably what inspires me most, is making those connections, learning from people, being in a relationship like that with people who want to have those kinds of conversations. So for me, that has allowed my self-confidence to grow and to recognize that that's not for everyone. I don't have to be for everyone. But when I find those people, when I make those relationships and those connections and those contacts, geography doesn't matter, because that energy is non-geographic. The one person I spend the most time with during the week lives in a state half a country away. And that is because energy is non-geographic. And I love who I am in his listening space. It's Chris. I know I've talked about Chris, my friend Chris Angel. And I love who I am in his space. And we don't always agree. And we've come to the point where we can challenge each other in a way that helps us both understand better. They're just people who do that for me. And like I said, it's not everyone and it's not for everyone. But what I've learned since I found people like Chris, found a tribe, found the people who want to go deep like I do, who want to have meaningful dialogues, and once in a while go to a brewery and have a beer. I mean, let's be honest, there are times and places for everything. But even then, I'm not really great at small talk anymore. I want to know you. I want to know who people are. I want to know who people are becoming. I want to witness their growth and their greatness. And I want to help bring that greatness out, because I really do believe that the world will change for the better when people step into their greatness without feeling like they have to shave off the square corners to fit into somebody else's round holes, or without believing that they have to be the one to bully and push and convince people of things. I get that there's a range and a spectrum of the way people are and the way people can be. I'm interested in the small little slice that we're calling early adopters on the law of diffusion of innovations curve. I've talked about that before. But when you find those people in that space who see you, see who you really are, there's just something that happens, something magical about that connection. And I'm confident that those people will eventually find each other. And if they can find each other through me, that's my greatest joy. So if there's something that you've heard here that kind of awakens something in you, where yourself, inside yourself, could use a little love on Valentine's Day, let's have a conversation. I'm having an event the end of the month here called Chill Out, which is bringing together a lot of my favorite people from all over the US to present ideas. It's in Fargo. It's happening here in Fargo. And there are a lot of people in my vicinity here in Fargo who are very interested in this. I mean, I look at my Facebook invitation. I think it's something like 60 people are interested, and 12 people there are committed, have said yes to it. And I'm curious about what it would take to get you 60 people to fall off the fence on the side of yes for you. If it doesn't resonate with you, all the better, because you'll know when you know. But if you're curious and you're like, I want to know what these kinds of people talk about, or how I can be in the space of these people, come to Chill Out. It's right here in our community in Fargo. And I would love the opportunity to introduce you to some of these people. If it doesn't resonate with you, make that decision too. No is a complete sentence. There's no need to justify a no. Yes, when you're curious and you say yes to things, at least in my experience, that's where my world has opened up. I'll say yes until no is the right answer. And that has allowed me to see myself differently. It's allowed my confidence to grow. It's allowed me to be present when I meet someone, so that the next time I interact with them, I don't have to wonder if they remember who I am. I can be confident about who I am and what I'm here to do. So if that sounds interesting to you at all, check out Chill Out. It's a 29th Leap Day. We're going to spend it together at the Radisson in downtown Fargo. And if you're listening to this podcast later, great. There are lots of opportunities to connect with like-minded and like-hearted people. And I have ideas I'd love to share with you. If it doesn't resonate with you, I've got other people and other ideas. And maybe it's not me, but it's other people I know. I've done a pretty good job in my life of getting to know some amazing humans. And I'd love nothing more than to share them with you, because together we can do so much. Individually, we can do our part, but together, that's where the rising tide raises all ships. And I'm really committed to putting that energy and that light and that love into the world that feels like it can be very divided these days. So join me. I'm extending an invitation to all of you to get together. Join the Enlightened Leadership Lab on Mondays. We have the Real EA group on Wednesdays. We have a lot of opportunities. We have another group that meets on Wednesdays at 11 Central. A lot of these are virtual, but some are in person. Check it out. Do something out of your comfort zone so that you can help yourself grow. Look inside yourself and give yourself some love today on Valentine's Day. Thanks for being here, everybody. And as always, get real. Talk to you again.